And welcome back. We are tonight discussing the Chalillo Dam and the issues surrounding the dam. If you're just joining us, with Mr. Lin Yong, who is the Chief Executive Officer of BEL, and Mr. Mick Fleming, who is the owner of Cha Creek Cottages. And before we went to break, we were discussing the background and history of the dam. And I think at the end of the day, we recognized that the dam came about because we had a hydroelectric plant that wasn't providing the capacity, and
well, that's one way of putting it. But the dam was part of the
was scheduled to
be there, and with the dam in place, let's look at the positives before we look at the other issues, right?
All right.
The cost of power from hydro right now in the country is the cheapest power in the country right now.
Which is what?
Is that still 18 cents? Or
yeah, it's about 18 cents the least per kilowatt hour.
Right.
Last year it was 17 cents per least because we had excess production. We had a record production last year.
Okay.
So about 17 cents. Last year, the same power, the power from Mexico was about 27 cents here, 27 cents least per kilowatt hour. So it was 10 cents per kilowatt hour more.
That was a prime.
That was driven by the oil prices. This year, Mexico is running at about 19-20 cents per kilowatt hour. So it's about 3 cents per kilowatt hour higher than the hydro. We are buying power from BAL, Belize Aquaculture. That's running for about 27-28 cents per kilowatt hour. The power from Belcogen will come in at about 23 cents. That's burning the bagasse. That will come in about. Well, right now they're testing right now with their diesels, and we're paying about 23 cents. I think when they start burning the bagasse, they'll bring it down to about 21 cents from the bagasse. Right. So the hydro is the cheapest supply. The other thing to remember is that, sometimes it's frustrating being in the business because while we were going through the Chalillo thing, people kept asking, is it going to lower electricity rates?
Yes,
is it going to lower electricity rates?
Exactly right.
Deep down, I felt it would.
Okay.
But I didn't trust to say yes because I also know that it could be a possibility that oil prices could just keep going up, which I didn't think it would happen, but it happened. And if you look at what happened to oil prices, when we started Chalillo, the price of power from Mexico was about 11 cents Belize per kilowatt hour. By the time we finished Chalillo, the price of power from Mexico was at about 17 cents Belize per kilowatt hour. And within a year or two after, we were paying 24, 25, 27 cents per kilowatt hour. So what has happened is that we were buying about 50% of our power from Mexico, and we were generating about, I'd say, maybe 30% with diesels and 20% with hydro. Chalillo has allowed us to reduce our diesel generation down to about 2 or 3%. Right? So, but we dodged a serious bullet because if it wasn't for Chalillo, the cost of power, for example, in some parts, Chalillo and Mexico, I must say, right? The cost of power in places that generate only with diesel is in the region of 30 cents US, 60 cents Belize, 70 cents Belize per kilowatt hour. And that is one of the reasons why we have the second lowest rates in the Caribbean, because they generate only with diesels, heavy fuel or whatever, right? In the Central America, for example, I checked last year around July, the rates in Guatemala, residential rates in Guatemala were the same as residential rates in Belize. In Nicaragua, it was a little higher. In Honduras, it was about the same. With the oil prices going down now, they have dropped back a bit, but they are still not much cheaper than in Belize. And the reason why is because, like I said, if we were still generating with diesels, we would have been in big trouble. And bear in mind, in the Central American countries, there are lots of subsidies too. I mean, right now in Mexico, for example, one of the issues Mexico has with Belize, why they've been bumping up their prices, because they say that the rates in Mexico are subsidized, but they cannot give us those subsidized rates. And in fact, the president of Mexico just made a move to try and cut some of the subsidies to the...
And can I ask, in your cost analysis, do you actually take into consideration the, or do you put a value on environmental degradation as a matter of interest or not?
Before you answer that question, can we talk about the environmental context? What really is the issue with Chalillo from an environmental standpoint, and what are some of the fallouts environmentally from the whole project?
Well, I think there were a number of questions that we all had. None of us were experts in the field, but we also talked to a number of people who were, whether it be geologists or ornithologists or biologists, whoever it happened to be, and there were a number of questions in the EIA which which we certainly were had some questions about. But what is I think what is beginning to happen now is that some of the environmental concerns that were sort of question marked are beginning to manifest themselves, and I think a lot of them we won't actually see until further down the line, simply because when whatever you do to a water course, whenever you change it, it has to change what goes on downstream. How much it gets changed, none of us really know, and I think this is one of the problems that we're facing right now.
Okay.
Having lived on the river, I can certainly honestly tell you that there are some changes. The Moyahong itself really caused very little environmental degradation as far as I was concerned, and from my observation living where we do at Shark Creek, there might be some other people on the river who would disagree, but I think in honesty there was fluctuations in the river which were different than before, but because the water was never impounded and it was allowed through, whatever was going on upstream came down to the diversion structure, came down the 4.5 kilometer 4 meter tunnel and into the powerhouse and out into the river again. There was a small bit of river which was dried up, but but it had a flow coming in from the Moyahong stream halfways down. So really that was not a problem. The problem arose when the Chalillo got put in, and siltation was always a problem that we felt. And I say we, I mean, I don't know how many the eco-terrorists or whatever we were called at the time, the people who didn't, we were causing problems. I mean, it wasn't, it was, I think because we have great, a lot of us are foreigners, and but I think it's because we have great respect for, for the country which we've been fortunate enough to come and live in, that we would take note of some of these issues. And so what we're facing now is a question which I think is with the siltation of the river in particular, which I think is worrying people in BCOL as well, because nobody can really quite figure out what's happened. Okay. The EIA and the everything else said that there was going to be 0.01 percent sedimentation, and obviously, judging by what has recently happened, and which has caused this little sort of furore whereby people are now beginning to talk out about the whole issue, is that obviously there's a much greater siltation problem, and question mark, is it going to go away? Right. The color of the river, and I mean people even down in Belize City when they come into land, and when I came back in August, from the 2nd of August from the UK, and I'd heard there'd been very little, there hadn't been so huge amounts of rain up where we came from, but when I saw the river coming out, I thought, this is weird, look at the color of it, a different color than I'd ever seen before.
Actually there was a lot of rain in the hills.
In the hills,
but you would have seen it because the